Captain Zara Voss stared out at the empty space beyond her ship's windows. The stars looked the same as they had yesterday, and the day before that, and every day for the past 3 years. Nothing ever happened in this part of the galaxy anymore. The humans had been gone for 27 years now, and everyone had gotten used to the quiet. Her ship, the Stellar Wind, drifted slowly through the neutral zone near the edge of human space. The crew called it the dead zone because nothing interesting ever happened there. Most of the younger officers had never even seen a human ship. They only knew the stories from the old war, stories that seemed more like fairy tales now. "Captain, we're picking up some chatter from the Keth patrol ships," said Lieutenant Ross from his station. He was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that still showed excitement when anything unusual happened. "They're talking about moving closer to the Sol system boundary." Zara shook her head. The Keth Empire had been getting bolder every year since the humans disappeared. So had everyone else. The Valorian Republic was expanding into systems they never would have touched before. The Nexari coalition was building new military bases in areas that used to be off-limits. Everyone was grabbing what they could while the humans stayed silent. "Let them talk," she said. The humans made it clear they wanted to be left alone. If the Keth want to poke that sleeping giant, that's their problem. But even as she said it, Zara wondered if the giant was still there. 27 years was a long time. Maybe the humans had destroyed themselves. Maybe they had all died from some plague or war. Maybe there was nothing left in their space but empty planets and broken ships. The thought should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Zara had been there during the last war between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. She had seen what humans could do when they were angry. The Zephyrians had been one of the strongest military powers in the galaxy, with ships that could level planets and weapons that could crack moons in half. The war was supposed to be quick and easy for them. It lasted 6 months. When it ended, the Zephyrian Empire was gone. Not defeated, not conquered, but completely erased. Their homeworld was a ball of cooling rock. Their fleets were scattered, atoms in space. Their colonies had surrendered without firing a shot. The humans had shown mercy to the civilians, but the military and government simply ceased to exist. Then Earth's ambassador had stood before the Galactic Council and delivered a simple message. Humanity was withdrawing from galactic affairs. They would defend their territory, but they wanted no contact with alien civilizations. Any ship that entered human space would be turned away. Any attempt at communication would be ignored. Earth was closing its doors. For the first few years, everyone had expected them to come back. The humans were traders and explorers at heart. They had colonies scattered across dozens of systems. They had treaties and trade agreements with half the galaxy. But the years passed and the silence continued. Human colonies went dark one by one as their populations were quietly moved back to Earth space. Trade routes that had carried human goods for centuries went empty. The galaxy learned to live without them. New trade partnerships formed. Old enemies became allies. The major powers divided up the territories that humans had once claimed or protected. Life went on, and most people stopped thinking about Earth entirely. Zara was not most people. She remembered the war too clearly. She remembered the human admiral who had accepted the Zephyrian surrender. His name was Kane Mitchell, and he had been younger then, maybe 45. His eyes had been cold as winter when he spoke to the defeated Zephyrian generals. He had shown them recordings of the attacks on human colonies that started the war. Civilian settlements burned from orbit. Hospitals bombed. Children killed in their schools. "You wanted to show us what war really looks like," Mitchell had said. "We learned the lesson. Now you understand what happens when humans get angry." That was 27 years ago. If Mitchell was still alive, he would be in his 70s now. Maybe he was dead. Maybe all the humans from that war were dead, and the new generation had forgotten how to fight. Maybe Earth really was just a quiet planet full of farmers and artists now. Or maybe they had spent 27 years getting ready for the next war. Deep in the asteroid belt beyond Pluto, Admiral Kane Mitchell sat in his command chair and watched, the alien signals dancing across his screens. His hair was gray now, and his face showed the lines of 7 decades of life, but his eyes were still cold as winter. The bridge around him hummed with quiet activity as his crew monitored every transmission in the galaxy. "Sir, the Keth patrol fleets are moving closer to the boundary markers," reported Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her communications station. She was 32, born after the war, trained from childhood for this moment. "They're testing response times." Mitchell nodded. He had been watching the aliens grow bolder for years. First, they sent scout ships to the edge of human space. When no response came, they sent larger patrols. When those were ignored, they began making jokes on their open channels about the disappeared humans. Now they were talking about actual incursions. "How many ships are we tracking in the outer systems?" he asked. 47 Keth vessels, 12 Valorian scouts, and 6 Nexari research ships, replied Captain Lisa Carter from the tactical station. "All of them are outside our declared boundaries, but they're getting closer every week." The ESS Retribution drifted silently through the asteroid field, invisible to alien sensors. She was twice the size of the largest ship from the old war, armed with weapons that existed only in theoretical papers when the humans had withdrawn from galactic society. Her crew of 800 had trained for this mission their entire adult lives. They were the children and grandchildren of the veterans who fought the Zephyrians. They remembered the stories. They understood the stakes. "Sir," said Dr. Ryan Hughes from the science station, "long-range sensors are detecting increased military activity throughout Keth space. Fleet movements, supply convoys, the kind of logistics you see before a major operation." Mitchell smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "They think we're gone. They think they can walk into our territory and take whatever they want." He stood up and walked to the main display screen, where a map of local space showed the positions of every ship within 50 light-years. Red dots marked alien vessels. Blue dots showed the hidden positions of Earth's new fleet. There were more blue dots than anyone in the galaxy suspected. "Open a channel to all ship commanders," Mitchell said. "It's time to let the galaxy know we're still here." Commander Jake Sullivan was having his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He nearly dropped his cup as red lights flashed throughout the small observation station. His crew of 12 scrambled to their positions while Jake ran to the main control center. "What do we have?" he shouted over the noise. 15 ships just jumped into the outer system," replied Sergeant Kate Morgan from the sensor station. "They're big ones, sir. Keth Empire markings. They're heading straight for the inner planets." Jake felt his stomach drop. The observation post was hidden on a small moon in the outer reaches of the Sol system. For 27 years it had been the quietest assignment in Earth's military. Nothing ever happened. The aliens stayed away and Earth stayed hidden. Now 15 warships were crossing the line that nobody had dared to cross in nearly 3 decades. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Jake ordered, "and send out the standard warning signal on all frequencies." He sat down at his command station and activated the communications array. This was the moment they had all trained for but never expected to face. Jake was only 34 years old. He had never seen an alien ship except in training videos. Now he was about to make first contact for the entire human race. The communication system crackled to life. Jake cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone with as much authority as he could manage. "Attention, Keth vessels. This is Commander Jake Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human sovereign space without permission. You have 30 minutes to withdraw back beyond the boundary markers, or we will consider this an act of war. This is your only warning." On the bridge of the Keth flagship Iron Claw, General Thrak burst into laughter when he heard the transmission. His officers joined in, filling the bridge with the harsh barking sounds that passed for Keth amusement. Thrak was 8 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms, each ending in claws that could tear through metal. He had conquered 17 systems for the Empire and never lost a battle. "One small station and they think they can threaten us," Thrak said to his second-in-command. "These humans have been quiet so long they have forgotten how to fight. Send them a reply." The response came back within minutes. The Keth general's voice was deep and filled with contempt. "Human station, this is General Thrak of the Keth Imperial Fleet. We do not recognize your territorial claims. We are conducting a scientific survey of this system. Any attempt to interfere will be met with overwhelming force." Jake listened to the message and felt anger replace his fear. The Keth were lying and they both knew it. 15 warships were not a scientific mission. This was an invasion, pure and simple. They were testing human resolve, expecting Earth to back down like a frightened child. "Send another message," Jake told his communications officer. "General Thrak, you have 28 minutes remaining. We strongly advise you to reconsider your position." Deep in the asteroid belt, Admiral Mitchell watched the drama unfold on his command screens. The ESS Retribution had been monitoring Keth communications for hours, listening to their plans, tracking their movements. This was not a random patrol or an accident. The Keth Empire had planned this incursion for months, choosing the Sol system specifically because they believed humanity was weak and defenseless. "Sir, the observation post is requesting immediate backup," reported Lieutenant Amy Brooks. "Commander Sullivan is asking for instructions." Mitchell studied the tactical display. 15 Keth ships against one small station. In the old days, Earth would have sent a fleet to intercept them. Diplomats would have protested to the Galactic Council. There would have been weeks of negotiations and threats and posturing. But these were not the old days. Earth had learned patience during its long isolation. More importantly, Earth had learned to make examples. "Signal all stations to begin recording," Mitchell ordered. "Full spectrum analysis of Keth weapons and defensive systems. I want to know everything about their capabilities." He turned to Captain Lisa Carter at the tactical station. "Time to introduce ourselves, Captain. Bring us to general quarters and prepare for combat operations." The crew of the ESS Retribution moved with practiced efficiency. They had drilled this scenario thousands of times over the past decade. Every officer knew their role. Every system had been tested and retested until it operated perfectly. The ship itself began to change as armor plating slid into position and weapon systems powered up. "Cloak disengaged," reported the navigation officer. "We are now visible to their sensors." On the Keth flagship, alarms suddenly filled the bridge. Sensor operators shouted reports in confused voices. Something massive had just appeared on their screens, something that had not been there seconds before. "Report," General Thrak roared. "Unknown vessel, sir," replied his sensor chief. "It's huge, at least twice the size of our flagship. It just appeared out of nowhere, directly between us and the inner system." Thrak stared at the main screen as the shape of the human ship became clear. It was not like the vessels Earth had used in the old war. This ship was angular and predatory, covered in weapon arrays that his computers could not identify. It looked like it had been designed by someone who understood that war was not a game. The communication system activated, and a human voice filled the Keth bridge. It was calm and cold, with the tone of someone who was used to being obeyed. "Keth, vessels. This is Admiral Kane Mitchell of the Earth Defense Force. You have violated human sovereign space in direct contradiction of interstellar law. You will power down your weapons and surrender immediately, or you will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply." General Thrak felt something he had not experienced in 20 years of conquest. Fear. Not fear of death in battle, which was honorable, but fear of the unknown. This human ship had appeared from nowhere, silent and invisible until it chose to reveal itself. How long had it been watching them? What other ships were hidden in the darkness? But Thrak was a general of the Keth Empire. He had not built his reputation by surrendering to threats. "Human vessel," he replied, "you are outnumbered 15-1. We do not surrender to inferior species. If you want to fight, we will give you one you will not forget." On the bridge of the ESS Retribution, Admiral Mitchell smiled his cold smile. He had hoped the Keth would be reasonable, but he had expected them to be proud. Their pride would serve Earth's purposes perfectly. "Captain Carter," he said quietly, "you may fire when ready." The galaxy was about to remember why they had once feared humanity, and this time, the lesson would be impossible to forget. General Thrak stared at the massive human ship on his screen and made the decision that would end his career and his life. He had fought dozens of battles across the galaxy. He had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. No single ship, no matter How large could stand against 15 Keth warships? All vessels, attack formation, Thrak commanded into his communications array. Target their engines and weapon systems. Show these humans what happens when they threaten the Keth Empire. The 15 ships of his fleet moved into position with practiced precision. Each vessel was over 600 meters long, armed with plasma cannons that could melt through asteroid fields and torpedo systems that had leveled cities. Together, they represented enough firepower to destroy a small moon. On the bridge of the ESS Retribution, Captain Lisa Carter watched the enemy ships spread out in their attack formation. She had studied Keth military tactics for 15 years, analyzing every battle they had fought, every strategy they had used. She knew exactly what they were going to do before they did it. "Admiral, they're moving to surround us," she reported calmly. "Standard Keth pincer movement. They'll try to hit us from multiple angles while staying outside our main gun range." Admiral Mitchell nodded. The Keth were following their military handbook perfectly. It was a good strategy against most opponents. Against human technology, it was suicide. "Very well, Captain. You may demonstrate why their tactics are outdated. Try to leave one ship intact. I want them to carry word back to their empire about what they witnessed here." Lisa's fingers danced across her control panel, activating weapon systems that had been theoretical concepts when Earth withdrew from galactic society. The ESS Retribution had been built with one purpose in mind: to show the galaxy that humanity had not spent 27 years in peaceful isolation. "Railguns charging," she reported. "Quantum torpedoes armed. Point defense systems online." The first Keth ship opened fire from maximum range, sending a stream of plasma bolts toward the human vessel. The bright energy weapons lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. Other ships joined in, creating a storm of destructive force that should have overwhelmed any single target. The plasma bolts struck the ESS Retribution and simply disappeared. Energy shields that bent space itself absorbed the incoming fire and redirected it harmlessly into empty space. The human ship did not even slow down. "Impossible," whispered Thrak's sensor officer. "Sir, their shields are absorbing everything we're throwing at them. Our weapons aren't even scratching their hull." Before Thrak could respond, the human ship fired back. Railguns accelerated metallic projectiles to nearly the speed of light, sending them across space faster than Keth sensors could track. The first projectile punched through the shields of the nearest warship, like they were made of paper, and tore through the hull from nose to tail. The ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. "Evasive maneuvers," Thrak shouted, but it was already too late. Lisa Carter had fired 6 shots in the span of 2 seconds. Each projectile found its target with perfect accuracy. 6 Keth ships died before their crews even realized they were under attack. The railguns recharged and fired again. 6 more ships became expanding clouds of wreckage. The quantum torpedoes came next. These weapons used technology that the galaxy's greatest scientists considered impossible. They phased through space and time, passing through enemy shields and armor like ghosts, then rematerialized inside the target ships before detonating. 3 more Keth vessels simply exploded from within as the torpedoes appeared in their engine rooms and command centers. Their hulls cracked open like eggs, spilling atmosphere and debris into the vacuum of space. "Report!" Thrak screamed at his surviving officers. His flagship shook as a railgun projectile passed close enough to tear away part of their outer hull. 12. "Ships destroyed, sir," came the terrified reply. "We have 3 ships left, including ourselves. Our weapons are not penetrating their defenses. Sir, I recommend immediate retreat." Thrak looked at his main screen where the human ship hung in space like a predator among sheep. It had not moved from its original position. It had destroyed 12 of his finest warships without even trying to dodge their attacks. The ESS Retribution looked as undamaged as when the battle started. On the human ship, Dr. Ryan Hughes monitored communications across the galaxy. The battle was being observed by ships from every major power. Alien governments were watching their screens in shocked silence as the Keth fleet was systematically destroyed by weapons they did not understand. "Admiral," he reported, "we're detecting emergency transmissions from Valorian and Nexari observers in nearby systems. They're requesting immediate updates from their fleets. Word of this engagement is spreading fast. Mitchell nodded with satisfaction. That was exactly what he wanted. Let every alien government know that humanity had returned to galactic affairs with overwhelming superiority. Captain Carter finished the demonstration, leave the flagship intact. Lisa targeted the remaining 2 escort ships. Railgun projectiles moved too fast for the Keth crews to even see them coming. Both ships were cut in half by the hypervelocity impacts. Their fusion reactors went critical, creating 2 new stars that burned briefly before fading to nothing. General Thrak found himself alone in space, facing a human ship that had just destroyed 14 warships in less than 4 minutes. His flagship was damaged, but still functional. His crew was alive, but terrified. He had gone from commanding a conquest fleet to begging for mercy in the span of a single battle. The human admiral's voice filled his bridge again, calm and businesslike. General Thrak, you are the sole survivor of your fleet. You will return to Keth space immediately and deliver this message to your Emperor. Humanity has returned to galactic affairs. The old boundaries are no longer negotiable. Any further incursions into human territory will result in the complete destruction of your fleets and the bombardment of your military installations. Thrak tried to speak, but found his voice had deserted him. He had witnessed something impossible. One ship had destroyed an entire battle fleet without taking damage. The humans had not just advanced during their isolation. They had become something beyond alien understanding. You may go, Admiral Mitchell continued. Consider this a demonstration of human resolve. Next time, there will be no survivors. The ESS Retribution turned away from the wreckage and disappeared back into the asteroid field, vanishing from sensors as completely as it had appeared. General Thrak was left alone among the debris of his fleet, surrounded by the twisted metal remains of ships that had been invincible just minutes before. As his damaged flagship limped back toward Keith space, emergency communications flooded the galactic networks. The galaxy's major powers had been watching, and they had seen their worst fears confirmed. Humanity had not spent 27 years learning to be peaceful. They had spent 27 years learning to be unstoppable. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from every major power had arrived within days of receiving reports about the destruction of the Keth fleet. The massive council chamber buzzed, with nervous energy as alien diplomats whispered among themselves in dozens of different languages. Chancellor Vex of the Valorian Republic stood at the central podium, his blue skin pale with worry. He had seen the tactical recordings that General Thrak's surviving ship had transmitted. 14 warships destroyed in 4 minutes by a single human vessel. Weapons that moved faster than sensors could track. Defenses that made their best military. Technology looked like children's toys. We face a crisis that threatens the stability of our entire civilization, Vex announced to the assembled delegates. The human species has emerged from isolation with military capabilities that exceed our combined fleets. We must act together, or we will face them separately and be destroyed. In the Keth Empire section, what remained of their military command sat in stunned silence. Emperor Cross himself had come to the council, something that had not happened in 50 years. The proud warrior race that had conquered half the galaxy was now afraid of a single species they had once considered weak. The Valorian Chancellor speaks truth, Emperor Cross said, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. My finest general, commanding my best ships, was defeated without inflicting any damage on the enemy. The humans have weapons that ignore our shields and armor. They have defenses that make our attacks useless. This is not a war we can win through conventional means. High Commander Zenth of the Nexari Coalition leaned forward in his floating chair. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their brilliant tactical minds and advanced technology. If anyone could find a solution to the human problem, it would be the Nexari. We have analyzed the battle data extensively, Zenth said in his mechanical voice. The human vessel used railgun technology accelerated to near light speed, quantum manipulation weapons that phase through conventional defenses, and energy shields based on space-time distortion. Their technological advancement during isolation was not gradual improvement. This represents a complete revolution in military science. As the alien leaders debated their response, a new ship approached the council station. It was sleek and elegant, painted in the blue and white colors of Earth. After 27 years of silence, humanity was sending a diplomat to address the Galactic Council. Ambassador Elena Martinez stepped off her transport with calm confidence. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. Behind her walked Colonel Ben Parker, a veteran of the original human-alien conflicts, and Dr. Nicole Hayes, Earth's leading expert on alien psychology. The council chamber fell silent as the three humans entered. Every eye in the room focused on them with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and barely controlled hostility. Elena had expected this reaction. Earth's return to galactic politics was not going to be welcomed with celebration. Honored delegates, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. I am Ambassador Elena Martinez, representing the United Earth government. We come before you today not to negotiate, but to establish the new reality of galactic politics. Chancellor Vex interrupted before she could continue. Ambassador Martinez, your species has committed an act of unprovoked aggression against a peaceful Keth exploration fleet. The destruction of 14 ships and the deaths of thousands of crew members cannot be ignored. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in her expression. Chancellor, we both know the Keith fleet was not exploring. They were testing our defenses, with the intention of invading human territory. We responded to an act of war with appropriate force. She walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display showed the current map of galactic territories. With a gesture, she activated new boundary markers that extended human space far beyond what it had been before Earth's withdrawal. For 27 years, humanity withdrew from galactic affairs to develop our civilization in peace. Elena continued, during our absence you grew comfortable expanding into territories we consider ours, enslaving species we had declared protected, and generally believing yourselves the apex of galactic civilization. Emperor Cross rose from his seat, all four arms spread wide in a gesture of challenge. You speak of territories that have been claimed by right of conquest for decades. The Keth Empire will not surrender systems we have held since before your species learned to fly between stars. Elena turned to face the Keth Emperor directly. Your empire held those systems because humanity allowed it. That permission has been revoked. You have 30 days to withdraw your forces from all systems, within our new boundaries. Any military installations that remain after that deadline will be destroyed. The chamber erupted in angry voices as dozens of delegates began shouting at once. Some demanded to know by what authority Earth could claim such vast territories. Others threatened war if humanity attempted to enforce these new boundaries. The noise was deafening. Colonel Parker stepped forward and activated a small device. The chamber's sound system suddenly broadcasted the tactical recording from the recent battle. Alien representatives watched in horrified silence as the Keth fleet was systematically destroyed by weapons they could barely comprehend. That, Elena said when the recording ended, is our authority. We are not here to debate or negotiate. We are here to inform you of the new galactic order. Respect our boundaries. Cease your expansion into protected territories and treat the species under our protection with appropriate dignity. In return, we will return to our isolation and leave you to manage your own affairs. Dr. Hayes activated another holographic display, this one showing the locations of human ships throughout the galaxy. There were far more blue dots than anyone had expected. Earth had not just built one superweapon. They had built an entire fleet of vessels that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. The ESS Retribution is not our most powerful ship, Elena continued. It is simply the one we sent to deliver our message. We have vessels positioned near every major military installation in the galaxy. They are not there as a threat, but as a reminder that humanity's reach now extends far beyond our home systems. Chancellor Vex found his voice first. And if we refuse your demands? If we choose to unite against this human aggression? Elena's expression did not change. Then you will discover that the destruction of one Keth fleet was a demonstration of restraint, not capability. We prefer peace, Chancellor, but we are prepared for war on a scale that will make the Zephyrian conflict look like a minor border dispute. She turned to address the entire assembly. You have 30 days to begin compliance with our territorial requirements. After that, we will begin enforcing them ourselves. I suggest you use that time wisely. The three humans walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a council in chaos. Some delegates called for immediate military action against Earth. Others urged caution and negotiation. A few simply sat in stunned silence, realizing that the galaxy they had known for nearly 3 decades had just ended. In the weeks that followed, emergency meetings convened in every capital across the galaxy. Military commanders studied the battle recordings until their eyes burned. Scientists tried desperately to understand human technology. Politicians debated responses that ranged from total surrender to galactic war, but in the end, they all reached the same conclusion. Humanity had returned to galactic affairs with overwhelming superiority, and the old order was finished forever. 28 days had passed since Ambassador Martinez delivered Earth's ultimatum to the Galactic Council. Most of the smaller powers had quietly begun withdrawing from disputed territories, choosing survival over pride. The Valorian Republic had started negotiations about peaceful transition of their border systems. Even the Nexari coalition was pulling back their military forces rather than test human resolve. But the Keth Empire was different. Emperor Cross had spent those 28 days building the largest battle fleet in galactic history. Over 200 ships from across the Empire had gathered in the Thalar system, just outside the new human boundary. Pride and honor meant more to the Keth than survival, and they refused to surrender territory they had held for generations. On the bridge of his new flagship, Eternal Victory, Emperor Cross studied the tactical displays showing his assembled armada. Every ship was filled with his finest warriors. Every weapon had been upgraded with the best technology the Empire could provide. This was not just a military force. It was the entire might of Keth civilization focused on one goal, proving that humanity could be defeated. My Emperor, reported Admiral Vash, his military commander. All ships report ready for battle. We have 212 vessels, including our heaviest dreadnoughts. Intelligence suggests the humans have only 3 ships in this sector. Cross nodded grimly. The destruction of General Thrax's fleet had been a shock, but the Emperor believed it was a fluke. 1 human ship against 15 was an ambush, a surprise attack using unknown weapons. But 200 ships against 3 was mathematics. Even if human technology was superior, they could not overcome such overwhelming numbers. Begin the advance, he commanded. We will cross into human space and force them to negotiate from a position of strength. Show the galaxy that the Keth Empire does not bow to threats. Deep in space near the human border, Admiral Kane Mitchell watched the Keth fleet's approach from the bridge of the ESS Retribution. He was not alone. Captain Susan Torres commanded the ESS Judgment, a ship even more advanced than his own. Commander Alex Reed led the crew of the ESS Devastation, the newest and most powerful vessel in Earth's fleet. 3 ships against 212. The odds would have been hopeless for any other species in the galaxy. For humanity, it was simply Tuesday. Admiral, reported Dr. Ryan Hughes from his science station. The Keth fleet is maintaining formation. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding that we surrender and withdraw from this system. Mitchell almost smiled. The Keth Emperor still did not understand what he was facing. This was not a battle between equals. This was an extermination. Captain Torres, Commander Reed, you may begin the engagement at your discretion. I want this to be educational for our observers. Across the galaxy, every military command center was watching. The Valorian Republic had ships monitoring from a safe distance. Nexari intelligence vessels recorded everything. Even neutral powers had positioned scouts to witness what many believed would be humanity's downfall. The ESS Judgment struck first. Captain Torres had spent years perfecting the art of fleet combat against impossible odds. Her ship simply vanished from Keth sensors, reappearing in the middle of their formation like a ghost materializing from the void. Gravitational weapons activated around the human vessel, creating artificial black holes that lasted for mere seconds, but tore apart everything in their path. 15 Keth ships were crushed to atoms before their crews realized the battle had begun. The ESS Judgment disappeared again, leaving behind twisted wreckage and expanding debris fields. Commander Reed's ESS Devastation attacked from a different angle, using weapons that bent reality itself. Energy beams that traveled through folded space struck targets from impossible directions. Keth ships found themselves under attack from weapons that seemed to fire from multiple locations at once. Their shields and armor provided no protection against forces that ignored the normal rules of physics. Admiral Mitchell's ESS Retribution demonstrated the latest evolution in human military technology. The ship's AI systems had been studying Keth tactics and technology for decades. Every weakness in their designs, every flaw in their strategies, every limitation of their weapons had been cataloged and analyzed. The railguns fired in perfect coordination, sending streams of projectiles that struck with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Each shot was calculated to cause maximum damage to multiple targets. Single projectiles passed through the hulls of 3 or 4 ships before, expending their energy. The quantum torpedoes phased through space to appear inside enemy vessels, detonating in locations that would cripple entire squadrons. Emperor Cross watched in horror as his magnificent fleet was systematically destroyed around him. Ships that had conquered worlds were torn apart like paper dolls. Crews that had never known defeat died without firing an effective shot. The 3 human vessels moved through his formation like predators among prey, untouchable and unstoppable. "All ships concentrate fire on the nearest human vessel," he screamed into his communications array. "Overwhelming force. Destroy them." 50 Keth ships focused their weapons on the ESS Judgment as it reappeared near their position. Plasma cannons and missile systems fired everything they had at the human ship. The space around Captain Torres's vessel filled with deadly energy and explosive warheads. The attacks struck the ESS Judgment and simply disappeared. Advanced shields that manipulated space-time itself absorbed the incoming fire and redirected it into parallel dimensions where it could do no harm. The human ship emerged from the bombardment without a scratch on its hull. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 2 hours. When it ended, the Keth Empire's greatest fleet was nothing but expanding clouds of debris. 212 ships had been reduced to scrap metal and cooling gas. Thousands of the Empire's finest warriors were dead. Only 1 ship survived. Emperor Cross found himself alone in space, his flagship damaged but still functional. His crew was in shock, unable to comprehend what they had witnessed. The 3 human vessels hung in space around him like the instruments of divine judgment. Admiral Mitchell's voice filled the bridge of the eternal victory, calm and businesslike as always. "Emperor Cross, you are now the sole survivor of your invasion fleet. You will return to Keth space immediately and inform your people that their empire's military expansion has ended permanently. Any further acts of aggression will result in the bombardment of your homeworld and the complete destruction of your civilization." The emperor tried to speak, but found that words had abandoned him. He had brought the entire might of his empire to this battle and watched it die in less than 2 hours. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had erased it from existence with casual efficiency. "Your empire may continue to exist within its pre-war boundaries," Mitchell continued. "Your people may live in peace if they choose to embrace it, but your days of conquest and expansion are finished forever." 6 months later, the new galactic order was firmly established. The Keth Empire had withdrawn to its core systems, too broken to ever threaten anyone again. The Valorian Republic had negotiated peaceful trade agreements with Earth and focused on internal development. The Nexari Coalition had become humanity's first official ally, offering their technological expertise in exchange for protection. Admiral Mitchell stood on the observation deck of the ESS Retribution, watching peaceful merchant ships travel through space lanes that had once been battlefields. The galaxy was quiet again, but this time the silence came from respect rather than abandonment. Captain Jenny Foster, his new first officer, joined him at the viewing port. She was young, born after the war, trained for a galaxy where humanity was the dominant power. "Sir?" she asked. "Do you think the peace will last?" Mitchell considered the question carefully. In the distance, he could see the lights of alien ships going about their business, trading and exploring and living their lives without fear of conquest or war. "As long as they remember what happens when they disturb it," he replied. The galaxy had learned its lesson at last. Humanity's deadliest ship had arrived, and with it, a new age where peace was maintained through the simple understanding that some sleeping giants should never be awakened.